The alarm blared through the glass halls just as Elena dropped her mop bucket. A sharp, mechanical wail echoed across the gleaming corridors of Stanton and Line Engineering, the kind of sound that froze people mid-step. She could already hear footsteps rushing above her, the clipped voices of engineers barking orders. Another system failure, another night where her presence would be noticed only because she was in the way. She knelt to retrieve the spilled water, but her gaze lingered on the flickering red lights inside the laboratory window. The panels on the prototype servers blinked erratically, a rhythm she recognized. She had seen that same pattern years ago, when she was still called Engineer Ruiz, not Janitor. A voice cut through the noise. "Stay clear, please. Let the professionals handle this." It was Robert Stanton, tall and silver-haired, striding past without so much as a glance at her. His suit gleamed under the emergency lights. His tone carried the kind of certainty only wealth could buy. Elena murmured a quiet, "Yes, sir," even though he was already gone. She stood still for a moment, mop in hand, as technicians rushed around her. The smell of overheated plastic filled the air. She should have walked away. That's what she always did, clean up after chaos, not inside it. But the sight of the sparking console tugged at something deeper, something she had buried beneath years of silence and survival. Back then, in another life, she had built control panels like these. Her small workshop had been filled with the hum of circuits, the faint scent of solder and warm metal. Her husband, Tomas, had sat beside her, laughing when she insisted on testing everything twice. "You're too careful, Lena," he used to say. And then the world fell apart. The layoffs, the political unrest, his illness. She had crossed an ocean afterward, armed with a diploma no one recognized, and a child she had to feed. The mop handle trembled in her hand now. She pressed her thumb against the smooth wood, grounding herself. This was not her place. Her job was to make the floor shine, not the system run. But as she turned to leave, she caught sight of a young intern, Mia, standing frozen near the control panel, eyes wide. "The override won't respond!" someone shouted. The servers whined louder, and a small burst of smoke curled upward. Elena's instincts surged. She stepped forward on reflex, only to hear another command slice through the air. "Who told you to go near that?" Robert's voice again, sharp, irritated. "We don't need janitorial staff touching critical equipment." The words hit harder than the alarm. She stopped mid-step, face flushing, hands curling around the mop handle like a lifeline. Around her, laughter flickered. Not cruel, just dismissive. The kind that stings because it carries truth. She didn't belong here. Not in this glass world of credentials and clipped lanyards. She backed away, nodding faintly. The emergency lights flashed across her damp uniform, reflecting off the water she'd spilled. For a moment, the floor looked like a broken mirror, her reflection scattered in pieces. When the noise finally faded, she returned to her cart and continued cleaning. The rag in her hand smelled faintly of bleach and defeat. She moved slowly, deliberately, one tile at a time. Above her, she could still hear Stanton's voice, confident, commanding, and the soft panic of the others trying to fix what was broken. She wiped the last streak from the glass wall and looked at the servers again. Their red lights pulsing like a heartbeat out of rhythm, she whispered to herself, "Almost a promise. If they can't handle it, someone will." And then she turned off her radio, the alarm echoing in the distance, the sound of something about to change. By morning, the building still smelled of burnt wires. Engineers moved like ghosts between glass walls, their voices low, their confidence shaken. The prototype lab, once Stanton and Line's proudest space, now looked like a patient in recovery, humming weakly under fluorescent light. Elena had worked through the night, sweeping the debris, wiping down consoles still warm to the touch. She didn't speak to anyone. She didn't need to. Every glance that passed her way reminded her of the night before, of the moment she had been told to step aside, as if carelessness could be worn like her uniform. Now, as she wheeled her cleaning cart past the silent workstations, she heard muffled frustration behind the lab's closed door. "It's still unstable," someone muttered. Another voice, Stanton's, replied sharply. Then call the manufacturer. We can't risk another surge before the investors arrive. Elena paused. The same error lights blinked again, faint but steady. The rhythm repeated, slower this time. A pulse she could read like a language she'd once spoken fluently. She set her mop aside. Her heart beat in sync with the flicker. Mia, the young intern from the night before, caught her eye through the glass. It's looping again, she mouthed helplessly. Elena hesitated only a second. Then she opened the door and stepped inside. The air was sharp with tension. Stanton turned instantly. Not now, he said, exhaustion thinning his voice. We have a crisis on our hands. Elena stopped halfway across the room. I know, she said quietly. That's why I'm here. Her tone wasn't defiant. It was calm, too calm. Stanton blinked, unsure whether to scold or listen. Please just... But she was already kneeling beside the open server panel, eyes tracing the wires. The relay's shorting through the secondary line, she murmured. If you bypass it manually, it'll keep cycling. But if you reroute through the stabilizer channel... Her fingers brushed the air, as if sketching the circuit she saw in her mind. Mia leaned closer. That could work, she whispered. Stanton frowned. And you'd know that how? Elena met his gaze. Because I built one, she said softly. Not this model, but close enough. Silence filled the lab. Only the faint hum of cooling fans remained. Stanton looked at her. Really looked at her. For the first time. The logo on her uniform didn't seem to fit the steadiness in her hands or the quiet authority in her eyes. Do it, he said finally. She nodded once and reached for the nearest toolkit. Her movements were sure, deliberate. A loose strand of hair slipped from her bun as she worked, the light catching the fine dust on her sleeve. The others watched, not daring to interrupt, as she pulled one cable, tightened another, and rerouted the failing circuit with the care of someone tending to something living. The light steadied. The hum deepened into balance. The screen blinked once, then turned green. It was over. Mia exhaled loudly. Someone clapped, hesitant at first, then genuine. Stanton stood motionless, his reflection caught in the glass wall opposite hers. He opened his mouth, but no words came. Elena rose slowly, wiping her palms on her uniform. She didn't look proud, just relieved. You might want to recalibrate the input voltage before the next test, she said, almost to herself. Stanton stepped forward. Ms. Ruiz. His voice cracked slightly on her name. I owe you an apology, and perhaps... He paused, searching for the right words. A conversation about your position here. She smiled faintly, the kind that carried both forgiveness and distance. I already have a position, sir, she said. I just hadn't been seen in it. He said nothing. Later, as the investors arrived and the system performed flawlessly, Elena finished mopping the corridor outside. Through the glass, she saw Stanton gesture toward the restored prototype, his words measured, his pride quieter than before. When he caught her watching, he nodded once, not as a superior but as an equal. She returned the nod and turned toward the elevator, her cart rattling softly on the tiles. The morning sun spilled through the high windows, painting the floors gold. For the first time, her reflection wasn't scattered. It stretched whole across the polished surface. And as she stepped into the light, the hum of the machines behind her sounded less like noise and more like applause.